Today is election day in Florida, and I know that there is intense focus on an awful lot of races down there, but I'm particularly interested in Florida's 25th district, where the DeSantis Democrat, Jared Moskowitz, is running in a primary against Democratic socialist Oliver Larkin. Now, you may have seen this frankly despicable interview that was given on local Florida news. Larkin was, well, let's just watch a little bit. Oh, just before we hit play here, YouTube has a new profanity policy for creators, and I will do my best to abide by it so I don't get this video demonetized. But, you know, I imagine the interviewer might make your blood boil just as much as it makes mine. So let's all test our self-control and watch this clip.
Israel is committing a genocide in
That's
Gaza.
incorrect. That is factually incorrect.
It has been regarded
propaganda.
by the United Nations and Amnesty International and even Israeli human rights organizations, including B'Tselem. There's
The definition of genocide in the UN has said this, does not apply to what many people might think as a disproportionate wartime action.
What?
That's what that is in many people's minds. Genocide is a very specific thing. Actually,
and Israel's doing
genocide
it to
being committed
Palestinians
against Jewish people, not by Israel. And that's just a fact.
I mean, the United Nations recently in Geneva found that the IDF had deliberately targeted women and children. There's been famine conditions imposed over the Gaza Strip by the blockading of aid entering the Strip. There's been indiscriminate bombing of hospitals, of mosques, of churches, of...
Again, I'm going to have to stop you, as that is factually not correct.
It is correct.
But I hear you talking about something very important to a lot of people, and certainly who think that way. But as a congressman, and I'm being told we have to wrap, but as a congressman for District 25, I'm hoping your viewers will be able to hear you flesh that out a little more, as well as the Medicare for All and universal education. And we'll see you on the other side of Tuesday.
Okay, so that is what it looks like when a member of the corporate media is bought and paid for by the genocidal ethno-state of Israel. Glenna was so unbelievably dishonest every time she acted like she was fact-checking Oliver. She was spewing Zionist Netanyahu propaganda. When she would say that's not factually correct, there was no fact-checking that was happening. She was disputing the facts that Oliver was sharing. It's like she thought she could play opposite day. If I say this isn't a fact when everybody knows that it is, then magically, like the gaslighting in that interview. And this is so much of what corporate legacy media is. This is a huge part of the reason we are in this position in the United States, because CNN, MS Now, definitely all the regular networks, and also all of these local networks that are largely run by, pro-Israel Republican CEOs and corporations. They're not actually doing real journalism. Somebody recently asked me, I'm going to get back to Oliver in just a second, but somebody recently asked me, like, who can you trust in the media in the United States? Who actually is doing unbiased reporting, who's actually abiding by journalistic ethics? And I think there's actually only one choice, and that's Democracy Now! Yeah, I think The Guardian does good reporting. You can get good reporting from ProPublica and, 404 Media and a number of other places. But like, if you want truly independent journalism that is not compromised by big money and by foreign governments, by dark money, by billionaires, by the Epstein class, you basically can trust Democracy Now! But getting back to this race between Oliver and Jared Moskowitz, who we've seen the establishment try and push him and platform him as like young and energetic and opposed to the regime, but he is like deep in the pocket of AIPAC. He is just a mouthpiece for AIPAC. And also he's really very much a corporate Democrat, right? So you see a progressive DSA candidate who is not afraid to speak the truth calmly and effectively and factually, Glenna, right? And then you have Jared Moskowitz. And running up to the election, right, votes are still being cast right now. By the time I publish this, I think the polls will be getting close to closing. The polls show Moskowitz up anywhere between 2 and 26 points above Oliver Larkin. And so, news outlets from Fox News on down to local news outlets have been like, whew, okay, he's not going to win. I saw one Florida paper published a piece this morning that said that Larkin was the last stand of the DSA. He was going to lose. No, honey bun, the DSA and progressive candidates are on the rise. if Larkin doesn't win this race, it doesn't mean that the DSA is Jober and it's all by done for them, right? Like it doesn't mean that at all. It's really weird, I think, in the US, both with the resistance against fascism, but also just like our politics in general. People act like every skirmish determines the outcome of the war or is a definitive statement about the progress or setbacks that we're facing. Like there's no holistic picture. People want to declare victory or defeat after one race or one scandal, right? Folks tend to hyper focus on one incident, one loss, or one victory, and think that that is giving a comprehensive picture of what's happening. And I think that has been both to the detriment of pro-democracy folks, but also to the detriment of the regime. It's just this like instant gratification culture that we live in, right? We're not able to step back and look at the long game. We're not able to look at the cumulative impact of our actions. So much of the doomer content that we see on social media wants people to quit after one setback or one momentary success that the fascists are having. So it's really fucking weird. I mean, in keeping with all of that, but also on another level, really, shoot, I can't swear, you guys, really effing weird that that so many people are like, if Oliver loses today, this means that the establishment is doing great. No, they're not. No, they're not. And we don't know yet what the outcome of this election will be. At the time I'm filming, votes are still being cast. But if Larkin loses, then what does that say, right? Like, what was the point of him running if people felt like he was an underdog? I've seen a lot of people saying, like, why bother? Why spend all of this money? Why go through this campaign if you knew that the odds were not great? Well, when Zoran Mamdani started running for mayor of New York City, he was polling at 1%. Abdul El Sayed was behind all the way until the last couple of weeks before he won his primary, right? We saw that with Melat Kiros as well in Colorado. We've seen these candidates who come from behind. And the reason that they are able to win the confidence and support of the public is because they are actively campaigning and sharing their message. And I think Oliver understands, right? He's young, he's 34. He understands that this race is not the end-all be-all for the DSA or for progressive politics in the United States at all. And I think one of the most important things about his race is that even if he was coming from behind, even if he doesn't win today, he was able to platform the message of the DSA, and in particular, in a very calm, even keel, patient way, right? He wasn't getting angry. He was just being very measured and factual in what he was sharing. He was able to speak openly and honestly on various news, stations and platforms about the genocide in Gaza. And I think the reach that he got is so important, even if he doesn't win this race. And so often I think Democrats feel like if a race is unwinnable, we're not going to bother to run somebody, right? We're not going to even bother. Like a lot of races in this country go uncontested. Not just in the general election, but a lot of primaries go uncontested. And people feel like it's not worth running a candidate if the person they're running against is very popular, has a lot more resources. But there is something to be said. There's something really important there in running a candidate who can communicate their message and start to reach and connect with voters and persuade, educate voters, even if they don't win in that particular race. Every member of the House has to run for re-election every 2 years. And unfortunately, I know there are a lot of fellow leftists who don't really believe in incremental change, but I would argue that change almost always happens incrementally. There's not one big revolutionary moment. The revolution is ongoing, and you have to communicate your message, and you have to persuade people, like literally one person at a time, to get on board. And so while Oliver may or may not win today, what he has done is educate, reach, connect with millions of people who have seen his interviews, and he's had the chance to share the truth, to share facts, not just about the DSA platform, but about the reality of geo-global politics and politics in the United States. And if you don't believe me, I'll leave you with a couple of clips here, because Oliver has been willing to go on all of these networks and do these interviews and reach unlikely folks who might not otherwise hear the message of the DSA. And I think that's really, really important. It's part of how we get change, right? I think we need to learn to measure victories differently. We need to learn to measure progress differently.
Why do you think you're entitled to other people's money?
I'm not entitled to anyone else's money. I'm talking about universal programs that we all pay into. Many of your viewers that
how do you
support
fund those?
programs like Medicare and Social
money.
Security that... Well, when we have, like I said, $1 to $2 billion a day that we're spending on an illegal war with Iran, we can more than afford this. We've spent $2 trillion on wars with Iraq and Afghanistan that I was seeing in the previous segment. We're now talking about the downfall of the United States foreign policy regime that really just replaced the Taliban with the Taliban. So we've seen so much of our blood and treasure go into foreign wars overseas that have not made Americans safer.
But you've still not
and we've seen a
explained why you
declining
think you're
standard of
entitled
living.
to other people's money.
I'm not entitled to anyone else's money. I'm talking about universal programs that we all pay into. And for the millions of Americans that are struggling with affording the cost of their children's college education or paying down their student loan debt, when we invest in the American people, that economic output is more than multiplied. When we see their educational attainment, their trade school, their vocational programs, all putting money back into the economy with greater labor productivity.
Well, democratic socialism is about bringing the systems of government that govern our lives under democratic control. We already pay a Medicare tax. Why don't we all have access to Medicare? We already pay into Social Security. Why are the wealthy and elite getting away with paying a lower effective tax rate on Social Security than the rest of us with the Social Security income cap? So the capitalist system in the United States of America, we've seen the Great Recession, we've seen the enormous transfers of wealth under COVID-19, and we want equity in our system. When America has been at its best, we've invested in the social safety net like we did under FDR in the golden age of American capitalism in the 20th century. We just want to see, with a democratic socialist principle, that we're investing in the American people and bringing our systems under democratic control.
Would you at least concede that capitalism in the United States has been extraordinarily effective, raising more people in the history of the world than anywhere out of poverty and leading to amazing developments, inventions, so on and so forth, putting America where it is?
I would say that when America has been at our best and when we've raised people out of poverty, it's because we've invested in the social safety net, when we've invested in the minimum wage and Social Security. So I think many of the greatest successes in American capitalism have been when we've invested in spreading the equity around and not just privileging the wealthy and elite like we have currently under our economic system and the billionaire tax cuts advanced by Donald Trump.
I'm assuming, is there a benchmark? Is it fine? How many children can be raised? It's fine if you're in relation to the immigration community.
If we're going to talk about children, then we need to hold this pedophile president, Donald Trump, accountable, and all those that have been implicated by the Epstein files that the Department of Justice is still not leaking. And they've sent AIPAC after Thomas Massey for having the temerity to hold accountable the pedophiles that are in control of our government.
Thank you. We appreciate your time very much.
If he wins today, that's awesome. Yay, Florida voters. I'll be really proud of you. But I also understand the amount of money and influence that exists in Florida politics. But change won't happen unless we make it happen. If we don't fight, we won't win. If we, the working class people of the United States, want to win against the oligarchy, against dark money, then we have to play the long game. And I think that's what Oliver's been doing.